BDSM and non-standard relationships,
power exchange and polyamory,
sacred sexuality and fetishes, as well as simply fun kink.
You'll find shows on these topics and more at eroticawakeningpodcast.com.
Hello, all you skibbies. This is Graydancer coming to you from a secret location just outside of Pittsburgh, where Naya and I are hiding out and holing up and holing out and stuff like that in between Dark Odyssey Summer Camp and the upcoming Crossroads event. TurtleHillEvents.org is doing the Crossroads, which is woo and kink, and we're looking forward to heading out there for that. Today's show is brought to you by the numbers 3, 5, and Infinity. Of course, actually, we have sponsors, including Karma Rope and Twisted Monk Rope. Now, usually I talk about these guys separately. You know, I talk about how Karma Rope has the pay-what-you-can model for basic, bare bones, pull it off the spool, stick it in a bag, and send it to you kind of rope, whereas Monk spends hours poring over every inch, literally, of the rope that he sends out, custom dyed with a highly scientific process that he has been perfecting for well over a decade. But this time, I'm just going to tell you that it is really awesome that they have done a co-sponsorship of the People of Color Safe Space at the upcoming Ropecraft event. And we had several people apply for it, and right now our selection committee, which I am very happy I am not part of, because, boy, let me tell you, I would not want to have to choose between the level of quality in these applications for the scholarship. So anyway, they are helping out to cover the costs of lodging and transportation for someone to come and support and organize and host the People of Color Safe Space at Ropecraft, and I really, really appreciate it. They definitely, as a friend of mine put it recently, they walk the walk. They not only talk about how they'd like to make things better, but karmarope.com and twistedmonk.com both do a great job of actually making the scene better. And I am honored to have them supporting this podcast. And as I mentioned, I was just recently at Dark Odyssey Summer Camp. And while I was there, not for the best of all reasons, we were there to kind of try and be a ad hoc incident response team. You've heard me talk about this before as the Rashomon. We've changed that name for various reasons, and you can now find the stuff that you used to find about Rashomon at consent.rocks. Yes, that is a website, ROCKS, consent.rocks. And the incident response team was 7 people, and I'm probably going to talk more about it later on at some point, but I'm just going to tell you 3 things that I noticed at the event, and that's where the number 3 comes in, and these have to do with consent. The first thing about it is that I heard multiple times from multiple people in various incarnations of the consent arguments or situations or experiences, the idea that, well, I didn't touch the person, or they didn't get touched, or they didn't touch me, so therefore it can't be a consent violation. And it really struck me as being kind of silly. I used to teach preschool, and I'm like, it sounds like a whole bunch of people saying, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, you can't say anything wrong because I'm not touching you, and you all know how fucking annoying and immature that is. So can we please take out of the whole thing of, well, I didn't touch the person, therefore it couldn't have been. You know what? It is entirely possible to violate someone with words, with your presence, with the way that you are acting, especially if it's intentional. And if you are intentionally acting in a way that is suggesting violation, whereas not actually touching someone, well, I personally would have no problem banning you from my event, and I would hope that others would follow that. Number 2, apologies. More people need to learn how to do it well. In fact, I've been talking to Naya, and I think that I could probably make a living as kind of, instead of a dating coach or a seduction coach like Arden Lee, being an apology coach. All I'd have to do is say, hey, did you ever try apologizing and discover that it didn't go well? Come and talk to me, and I'll help coach you through an apology that, well, we're not guaranteed to get things better, because that's part of apologizing, as Ferret will put it. It will at least be better than the last try. And here's a free pro tip. Almost always, the only part of an apology that should be about you is the "this is how I'll try to make it not happen again" part. Anything else in the apology that is about you should probably just be left out. And number 3, if you've been involved in a consent type incident, regardless of whether somebody was at fault or not at fault or whatever, if afterwards you can't think of something that you could do to reduce the chances of being involved in one again, you're really not trying hard enough, and you probably should talk to some people about how to do that. Even if it's as big a thing as, hey, I was totally innocent, but I can see how rape culture caused this to happen, so I'm going to work to reduce that. I mean, there's got to be something. I'm really frustrated with people who say, well, yeah, I was involved in this situation, but it all blew over, so now I'm not going to worry about it. And they keep doing the same behavior that caused the thing that blew over in the first place. So really, if you are involved in something, even if you are completely, absolved from any situation, if you can't think of something you can do to reduce the chances of being, especially if you're accused again, then really you need to work a little harder. And I'd love to help you do that. Just give me a call. Don't really give me a call. But you can email me, graydancer@gmail.com. So those are my 3 things that I sort of noticed about the interesting incidents at Dark Odyssey Summer Camp. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey to the Ropelab, with my dear friend Murphy Blue and the number 5. All right, we're here at Ropelab, Rope in Space. The great Murphy Blue, philosopher, warrior, scholar, man about town, has 5 angry truths that every rigger should know. And I am dying to hear this. I really...
All right.
I'm in the mood for some angry truth right now.
Okay, look, first, again, when I originally thought of this, I actually had 5 angry truths. It's been a minute, so I don't remember I have all of them. I will do my best to see if I remember all of them. Angry truth 1, you're not intermediate. Deal with it. Every time someone says that they're at the intermediate level, they're not at the intermediate level. They're at advanced basic, maybe. They've gotten to the point where they don't know what else there is to do, and they're looking for a new tie to sit there and make themselves special, to be different amongst their crowd, and they're like, I don't know how to move forward. And moving forward doesn't look like that. That's not what you have to do to actually move forward. And, well, I need to practice with this person. No, it's not it. It's not a new tie. It's not a new technique. And that's, like, the first thing. And so when you're sitting there and going with this bullshit of, like, oh, yeah, I'm intermediate, or something like that, you're just not. Because anyone who's actually intermediate doesn't say it. They just go up in time for a while. You watch them, because they'll sit there and they'll throw their shit out at you. And you'll see all the people, who talk intermediate. And then when you take them on what is considered an intermediate maneuver, they look at you like you're the weirdest shit in the world. So, no, stop that shit. 2, your pedigree don't mean dick. It means enough to show that you've spent some time with these people, but especially in American training, what most people's pedigree is, I've taken 90 minutes of training with anybody. Okay, that's nice. You've taken 90 minutes of training with me. You don't know shit about, shit that I know. You know what I was able to condense into 90 minutes that hopefully changed some aspect of your tying. And I appreciate that. I'm grateful like a motherfucker if any of that worked out for you. But the fact of the matter is that past that, if you just keep going, well, I trained with so-and-so, I did this. No, you didn't. And that doesn't mean enough unless you really train with them. My apprentice has sat with me under the rig, done nothing, and paid attention to what I've done for 7 years. Yeah, she's trained with me. I'll get her in the car and I'll ask her, what did you see about the ties we did today? What was good, what was bad? What do you think you need to watch out for? What do you think that I did that you need to remember? What do you think that I did that wasn't what you understand? And we have conversations. She trains with me. She studies my style. Now, you know, like ego about my style and all that shit, please forgive it. But the fact of the matter is she's trying to learn from me, then it's his responsibility to sit there and observe as well as do. And, you know, when I say, go over there and tie this drill tie for 5 hours, you know what she does? She says, yes, senpai, gets it motherfucking done, and comes back to me, and then she's better for it. You know, that's just the way that shit goes. And, goddamn, I just forgot number 3. Oh, let's see, pedigree reasoning shit. You're not intermediate. Lesson number 3. If you're gonna, hard truth number 3. If you're gonna sit there and take someone's class, don't make it a show-off session to the fucking teacher. It's like, I'm gonna come take your class, so that way I can show you how fucking good I am, and blah. And I'm just like, fuck your bullshit. This is not a fucking interview. This is not American Idol. You're not gonna sit there and do the great American Shibarian version that I've never ever fucking seen before in my entire motherfucking life, and then, you know, make me go, holy fuck, you're the hottest thing since sliced bread. You're in my goddamn class. Shut the fuck up. Don't explain to me why you shouldn't use a goddamn knot. Tie what I fucking showed you to tie. You asked me to show you something and you want to sit there and modify it. Well, I don't do it this way. If you've got a medical reason, that's one thing. Medical reason, a fear reason, a trigger reason, a psychological reason, okay, we're cool. Yeah, I had something happen a long time ago where I got into a situation where the thing they used to fucking hurt me was square knots. Yes, okay, I'm not gonna fucking question that. That is real. But if your only reason is, it's not my style, you didn't come here to learn your style. You came here to learn mine. So then do it the way I show you to do it. And then when you go to fuck home, you can pretend you don't know it or modify it for yourself. I'm not going to say anything against that. You're allowed to. After that, I gave you information. It's out in the world.
What did you guys say earlier?
Oh, we said...
Go ahead.
I hate that one because, honestly, people disrespect teachers so often trying to let their egos get in the way. I just can't fucking take it. I can't take it. It just drives me crazy. And like on a subnote of that one is I'm not here for your validation. If you're asking me for fucking advice, take my goddamn advice. Don't hope that I'm gonna say the thing you want me to say. I have people going, I don't know what to do with my rope stuff and what I need to do to practice and get better at stuff, and it's just like, and then there's just I tell them what to do, and they go, no, no, that's not what I do. It's not what I do.
I'm hearing Pink. I'm not here for your validation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm not. No, you want my advice, take it, or don't give me an excuse for why you can't. Because the thing of the matter is that thing you think I don't understand. I've been doing this like longer than you and the guy next to you have been fucking tying. It just means it doesn't mean that I'm great. It means that I've gone through it and failed at all those things. If you're asking me to give you advice so that you don't have to fail through those things, then consider the possibility that maybe I've walked the path. Just please. 4th one, you're gonna hurt somebody.
You're gonna hurt somebody.
You're gonna hurt somebody. You're gonna hurt somebody mentally. You're gonna hurt somebody physically. You're probably gonna hurt the same person both ways. Possibly in the same day, possibly at the same time. Too often, too many people sit there and do this with a thought that they're just gonna like, I'm not gonna hurt anybody. I'm gonna be the best rope top ever. I never have a nerve injury, never have a nerve damage, never drop, never have a... No, you're going to. You're gonna make a mistake. You're gonna be too full of yourself. You're gonna not be too full of yourself and be too cautious when you need to be very direct or very you know, sure. And you're not gonna move a rope at the right time. Something's gonna go wrong. A rope's gonna break. A piece of solid steel beam is gonna pop from the sky at some point you didn't know about, and someone is going to get hurt. And then tomorrow you're going to have to wake up and live with it. And it will never go away, and you will make every modification based on everything that's ever happened because of it, and it will always be a part of everything you're fucking going to do. And you need to be able to handle it, because if you cannot get over that, you will not get anywhere. There's a way that there's a very sloppy way that I connect the tops of my rope, my rope to my ring now, because I used to sit there and do something different, and in the middle of a scene, my ring came untied from the fucking point and fell. And if I didn't have fast reflexes, so fast I didn't know I had them, I caught the ring midair. It looked like a superhero thing. I was the luckiest bastard in the world. And it's a great story, but the fact of the matter is from that point on, I triple check everything. There are redundancies, and there are people who goes, that's not aesthetically pleasing, and I go, fuck you. I go, I almost dropped somebody. That's enough. You're going to hurt somebody, and you're going to have to live with it. And the number 5 or the number 1 fucking angry truth is that rope takes work. You want to sit there and tie up your partner in the back of a room though no one else is giving a shit about you, and there's just you and there's 4 walls and who they're fucking time. You could probably get away with, like, half-assing that shit, practicing when you learn it with the teacher, and then doing it in the comfort of your space. You'll probably not have too many other problems with it. But if you're going, I want to be a presenter, I want to be a performer, I want to do these things that do it, you have to work. In the immortal words of the TV show Fame, I know why you're here. You have dreams. You want fame. But fame costs, and right here is where you start paying in sweat. You gotta put in time. You gotta hurt at this. You gotta sit there and tie it till your fingers almost bleed, until they're sore inside of it, till your bottom's bodies aren't feeling good, and you're both questioning if you should do it. And when you're sitting there not sure about it at all, and you're crying about it, and you look at the rope, and your body is going, I don't want to pick it up, and you're afraid, that's when you reach for the rope again, and you run the drill. You get it until you get it hard, because that's what performers do. That's what presenters do. That's what professionals do. And you're asking to have professional level, then put in professional work. So if you want to be a star, then that's fine. If you just want to be a popular person in your area, you could probably half-ass it. Not half-ass it. Half-ass is an insult. You could probably do something okay. But if you're looking at upping your level, if you're looking at, I've hit the wall and I don't know where to go, and I want to learn more and do something, you have to work past it, because that's what the wall is. The wall is the end of your talent. The wall is the end of the bonus level starter gift that you got that was randomly given to you by genetics, life, and luck. And if you want something more about it, you got to throw in sweat, tears, and heart. And if you do it, you could be the best, but you don't get it without it. Those are my 5 angry truths.
Heavy stuff, huh? Let me tell you, I am very lucky to get to hang out with Murphy, and I'm very thankful for technology, because he can suddenly start talking about something, and usually I can just kind of go, hang on a second, and pull up my phone and stick it in his face, and he says something profound. And I really enjoyed hearing his 5 angry truths, especially since in some cases he would say things that I am too diplomatic to say. Speaking of being diplomatic, it's time for the 3rd number. And as I said, the last number is the number infinity. And that is, of course, Darren Infinity. If you listened to the last podcast or podcast a few times ago, we wished that we had him on here to talk about toxic masculinity and fragile masculinity. Now, before you go running away and calling me a social justice war boy or some shit like that, I want you to understand that we do try and keep this focused on the rope community. You are rope people. I love you all. I do a niche podcast, and I realize that you all don't want to sit here and hear all kinds of feminist theory unless it helps you get laid more. And I guarantee you, if you internalize the stuff that you hear from Darren Infinity, you will get laid more. And I say that because I'm pretty sure Darren Infinity and I get laid a lot. Right, dear?
Yes.
There we go. All right. So, I probably just said something controversial there too, but although I'm okay with being flamed. What I'm trying to do is say you should listen to this next part, especially since his 10 lightning questions is pretty damn funny, and you get a taste of the ambiance of Dark Odyssey Summer Camp.
All right, so you're going to hear a lot of noises in the background because we are live from Dark Odyssey. Naya's in there. Live from Dark Odyssey Summer Camp. And it has been an interesting and fun event. And I get to make good. You may have listened to the podcast recently with Eternal Angel, Iron Temple Dog, and Travis. That was definitely a slam. All right, we'll back up to explain what's going to happen now. We are sitting on the porch of Oink. And Darren Infinity, who is my guest tonight, do you want to say what happens when someone slams the door like that?
There's a paddling.
Yeah, that's basically it, is that if you slam the door... Yeah. Uh-oh. If you slam the door, that means that you get a paddle. You get a paddle swat.
Did I slam it?
Yes, you did. I saw you slam it, dear. I'm sorry.
It's not okay with somebody else swatting it.
Yeah, okay. You know what? I'll take the swat for you.
No, let him come and do it. I'm sorry.
We're negotiations going on.
it's don't slam the door.
Yes, there's
I'm sorry.
only one rule.
Show up here. You have to next. I'm going to let you off.
Oh, Lolita has been merciful.
Next time.
All right, so now Lonnie Angel knows the rule now.
The one rule.
There's only one rule at Oink, and it's don't slam the door. And there's a big paddle next to the door in case something happens. So, have you ever been hit with the paddle there, Darren?
A few times. I learned my lesson, though.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you learn pretty fast.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny, too, that one rule really helps us create a space here at Oink where we respect each other. We walk in the door knowing that we're going to respect each other and respect each other's space, and it really sets the tone for the space we create together in communal living for a weekend or a week or however long we're here. And that one rule really helps to facilitate that mindfulness, and it's really, really helpful.
I can testify to that mindfulness and how it carries over in that last night, Naya and I went to bed actually earlier than everybody else, and we ended up having sex on the bed, and we had the lights out. We figured if people come in, they'll turn on the lights, and in the middle of having sex, we suddenly realized that the room was full of people trying very quietly to find their stuff in the dark because they didn't want to turn on the light and bother us. And we felt kind of bad, but not bad enough to stop having sex. But we felt kind of bad, and we turned the light on afterwards. But yeah, that was is very, very polite, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was hot noises. We didn't want to interrupt that either.
Oh, well, if I'd known you wanted hot noises, I would have made more noise. I can make much more noise than that.
Well, the night is still young tonight.
So I particularly, if you listen to the podcast with Sir Travis and Iron Temple Dog, we at that time were talking about toxic masculinity and how to overcome it, and also tangentially fragile masculinity, which is kind of related, or maybe it's different. You can expound on your thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I think I said in the podcast, I really wish Darren Infinity was here because he teaches on this subject and he knows so much about it and has such a great perspective. We proved today that I don't care what you're teaching, I will sit in on your class. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how. Well, let's start the question. Is there a difference, or what is the relationship between toxic and fragile masculinity, and what are they?
So I'm not coming from an academic background, so I'll be very specific that my research and my thoughts around masculinity are far more experiential than they are academic. So some academic who studied this may have a different distinction here. But for me, fragility is kind of a aspect of toxic masculinity. There's certain scripts that are taught to us from an early age about what masculinity looks like, its constraints, its boundaries, who it expects us to be, and how we're expected to portray ourselves in the world, and what's supposed to threaten us, and particularly what's supposed to threaten us as men feeds into that fragile aspect, the aspect of fragility that says there are constant onslaughts, whether it's from feminist thought or the existence of queer people or radical ideas about how to be men.
People coming and taking our jobs.
People coming and taking our jobs. Absolutely. There's absolutely a racial aspect, too, to toxic and particularly fragile masculinity, in that it's this creation of society that doesn't actually stand up to close scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And so when people who are feeling insecure in their quote-unquote rightful place and who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to be able to go about the world with a great deal of privilege, whenever that gets chipped away at, we're exposing the fragility of that structure. Mm-hmm. And we're exposing those for the lies that they really are.
Now, before somebody turns to this podcast thinking that we've suddenly turned into the Feminist Frequency podcast, which, by the way, you should all listen to too because it's awesome. Mm-hmm. But before they do that, let's get this into kink and sexuality. How is this oftentimes manifest, and how does it reduce our joy for kink?
Well, I think it does in many ways, whether it's bringing it around to rope, for example. I had a time...
Why not? It's a podcast about rope.
Absolutely. Right. Let's talk about something that I've learned very little about, but there's a reason, actually, that I haven't learned about that, in that my experience in going into rope spaces where I was trying to learn some things and trying to grow and trying to ask questions, and the feedback that I received, or the criticism that was very barbed was all about other men positioning themselves as authority figures over me, as experts, as them knocking me down a peg would build up their own masculine persona. And that was an incredibly toxic environment for a lot of people to be able to learn in, and that meant that there were less women learning in the space, less genderqueer people learning in the space, and also men perhaps like myself and others who don't necessarily always measure up to that measure of what masculinity should look like, or don't want to compete in that race. Also don't have a place to explore and grow and learn about what it looks like to, be a rope person who doesn't have that large stereotypical male ego attached to themselves. Not to say that every person in that space had that, but there was enough of that it was incredibly toxic for somebody like me who doesn't respond well to that kind of energy and exchange.
So I'm not going to ask you to identify the space that you were in, but I am going to ask you, was there a particular time frame that this was?
So this was a few years ago.
Okay.
And, you see symptoms of that in a lot of like learning spaces in kink in general, where there's a lot of, potentially a lot of male dominance particularly, who have a certain sense of entitlement, have a sense that there's a particular way of learning things, of developing people, and that there isn't the flexibility required to understand other perspectives, that there may be more than one kind of body trying to be tied, where there may be different genitals or genital configurations or gender identities of people involved when you're trying to do genitorture, that there might be different perspectives and ways of thinking about how to do dominance and submission, or mastery and slavery, or even that language like mastery and slavery might be really problematic for somebody who is not, who either has a history with those terms in like ancestral history or current history, or is even just sensitive to those kinds of issues, right? Because I think part of the piece here too is that toxic masculinity and male privilege really ties into a larger problem of systemic racism, systemic religious persecution, systemic persecution of people of queer identities, of LGBTQ identities, and is part of this larger piece of male privilege assumes a sameness across the board, a sameness of experience, a sameness of ability, a sameness of ways of learning. And
I think it's important, again, before any of the listeners, I want to be sensitive to all of the listeners, including the ones who may be feeling threatened by some of the language that's going on here, is that privilege is not something that only some people have and some people don't have. Everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody has some kind of privilege.
Absolutely.
It's certainly in different layers and different levels. It's where the whole idea of intersectionality happens. And it's not, and because everybody has it, it's not like privilege is a sin or privilege is a bad thing. It's that when privilege is not acknowledged and not recognized, that's when it becomes entitlement.
Absolutely.
And when privilege is recognized and then leveraged to help others, that's when it becomes allyship, basically.
Absolutely,
kind of the idea.
And it can be a huge force for change, right?
Right.
We each walk into different rooms where we can help somebody who's less comfortable in that room. And that's a really powerful thing for us to be able to do.
And the way we do that is we walk over and say, "Hi, I'm here to help. How can I solve your problem?"
No, we
No, that was a no.
That was a definite strong no. No, we do that by recognizing who we are in each room and what particular power or privilege we may hold in that room, and then being aware of the people who may not share that, and being kind and comforting and loving to every person in that room in the way that they need us to be.
Okay, so pop quiz.
Yes.
I walk into a dungeon.
Okay.
And I see a female top, and she is struggling to put her suspension hook up on the frame, up to the thing up there. What is the proper response as an ally to say, well, I have the privilege of height, so I will walk over and do that for her? or is that a proper response?
No.
But I'm using my privilege of height to help her out. Why wouldn't that be a good response?
Because maybe they don't need that help. Maybe that is not the help that they need. Maybe they need a conversation about making the actual space more accommodating to them. Maybe they need a conversation with somebody else who's in a position of authority within the space, right? Because maybe we've got rules in place that are really effective where we can point something out to like somebody in charge of the space to say, hey, this seems to be a problem, and I bet it's a problem for other people.
Wait. So maybe I could use my privilege of I'm friends with the person who owns the space.
Yeah.
I could go up to them and say, hey, first of all, we might want to make sure that we have a step stool in plain view of people so they can use it if they need it. And if we don't have one, we should probably get one for the space. Would that be a better use of privilege?
Absolutely. And if that person, it really depends on the situation, but if that person looks like they could use assistance and there's no defined route to already provide that based on the rules of the space or anything else, then the first thing I can do is just like, looks like you may be struggling with that a little bit. Can I be helpful?
Okay. I can see that. Good guideline. Let's think of another situation. Let's say that you see some people doing a silly scene where, say, hypothetically speaking, a little girl top was doing some humiliating play with her daddy tied up on the thing. Should you just go over and contribute by adding into the humiliation and things like that?
Not without a direct invitation to do so. No, absolutely not.
That's totally hypothetical, of course.
Totally hypothetical. I don't know any dominant little girls like that at all. Absolutely. I think there's some venues where there's an expectation that we can contribute into each other's things, and I know that can get murky sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I err on the side of respecting people's space and bodily autonomy and mental autonomy, and that if it's a space that is often conducive to that, and that's part of the expectation there, then things about eye contact and being motioned over, rather than assuming that I have the right of access to that space, is, I think, a really important and key point there. Because, norms are going to be different across each space that we're in. And certainly some spaces I've been in are more conducive to tagging in a friend, mm-hmm. right? And think long and hard about just like, what makes me think that I have the right to access this space? Like, am I assuming something? Have I had a previous conversation with the person? Have I gotten the nod over? Things like that. Like, there are people who want people to tag in on that stuff, but err on the side of respecting people's space and time.
Makes sense, yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing you would want in yourself anyway.
Absolutely.
For yourself. I'd like to shift a little bit. Yes, there are lots of taxis here at Ramblewood where we have things going on, so you're going to hear those too. Think of it as ambiance. The thing I'd like to shift to is one of the promising things that I see in spaces is more and more males are bottoming to rope, mm-hmm. and especially tops are doing it, and I think it's a great thing, among other things. I personally have a very hard time enjoying being in rope, but I learned so much about how rope works, mm-hmm. and how the forces of the body work when I am bottoming to rope, right. that it definitely helps me. It helps my top game, right. basically. And that's really, aside from the joy of letting my serva learn more about rope, that's usually about the only thing I can get out of it. But it's a fantastic thing, and so I'm really happy to see that happening more often, mm-hmm. in things. You, in particular, are, and I'm gonna make you blush here. You are one of the most beautiful male bottoms I've ever seen. I'm not even speaking physically. I mean that too, but you have this way of being in completely ridiculous sometimes situations or mm-hmm. things like that, and you manage to somehow both be in the moment, totally receiving what's there, but you never lose your strength or your masculinity. Yeah. That I see. Yeah. And I hope I'm not treading on something. In that, somehow, and I'm not saying that when you're wearing your pink ruffly panties, you are making them masculine, because right. you're not. But you are holding that feminine as well as your masculinity
Right.
in this beautiful. We were walking up the path. We saw you standing up here in your pink frilly panties and your rainbow suspenders with your blue wings on the back, smoking a cigarette and drinking a can of Coke Zero,
Yeah.
and it was the most badass look. and at the same time, how do you manage to keep that presence when you do pretty intense play with your partners? How do you manage to keep that presence? What is your secret?
I think it's being confident and as free of shame as I possibly can be. And I think that
Okay, how do you do that? How do you get free of shame?
so, a lot of it is about self-work, and it's like I've processed a lot of shame over the years. I had a Catholic upbringing, which like layers us with shame, and I think that each of us, because I like to dive pretty deep into the pool, so to speak, right?
Yes, you do.
I like to do stuff that's transgressive and fucked up and humiliating and things like that. And I know for me, just to have like, number one, to have like good choices in partners, right? Who view me and see me just like whether I'm wearing a shirt and tie or whether I'm wearing roughly panties or a combination of the two, who see me as like both handsome and beautiful. And to expect that of people and to know that I'm worthy of that kind of love and respect, I try and exude that as much as possible because I want partners who I want my partners to see their love of me reflected back in me. So a lot of it's been self-work, talking with people about some of the things I felt shame around and working through those things. Other parts of it is just like, some of it is just kind of how I'm wired too, in that I feel like I'm a very masculine person. I embrace that, but it doesn't mean that I have to. My pursuit of masculinity and my growth as a man is not dependent on me fitting into somebody else's box, and I think that that's really been a key.
That's a huge piece.
That is a huge piece, and I think the biggest contributor to me learning and growing in that way is to be around and celebrate. For my journey has been to be around and celebrate really strong women, and to be surrounded by that and to see like the beauty in each of them for what they're bringing forward, and then to start to see beauty in myself as well. And I think that's the really key thing. I think that the more respect and love that we can share and grow for other people, then the easier it is to love and respect ourselves. What you're seeing when you're seeing me standing there and smoking a cigarette and wearing a skirt and also presenting in a very like masculine energy kind of way is the byproduct of me feeling loved and accepted in who I am, and fostering that with other people, and then in turn loving myself. If I love myself, then I can stand there with pride, and I can stand there and feel like I don't have anything to hide, and that my masculinity has some fringes on it, and that I can embrace, and that I can embrace that, and that I can grow that. And why the hell should women get the bulk on cute underwear?
I couldn't tell you. Couldn't answer that question. I love cute underwear. What would you say? Let's say that there's somebody listening and they're like, "Wow, I've always wanted to bottom to rope, but I've always felt like I've always felt like I might be less of a man, or people might see me as less of a man to do that." Aside from what is typically the case, and I can't tell you how many female rope tops or female dominants tell me about this, that, Mr. Joe Big Rope Top contacted me privately and said, "Hey, can we do a scene where I bottom to you, but can we do it in private and don't tell anybody?" How do you get to the point where you can feel comfortable, or can I won't say get to the point, because like you said, that's a lot of self-work.
Yeah.
What kind of sort of small steps and immediate actionable steps can somebody take to try and be more comfortable with bottoming to rope as a male masculine person?
Right. So I think there's a couple pieces of that uncomfortability, right? The first thing is like, what's the story I'm telling myself about how other people perceive me, right? And do some work around that. I don't like have quick tips and tricks. It's all about the self-work.
You're supposed to solve it.
Yeah, you know what? I spent 36 years of my life getting into the mental and physical mess that I am. I ain't gonna change anything overnight, and neither is anybody else, right? But some of it is about like, what's the story we're telling ourselves about how others are perceiving me? Because number one, people don't give that much of a fuck to begin with, right? Like when we think we're on display, we often aren't, right? The second thing is like, if there are people who are judging me, why do I give a fuck what they think of me, right? If I'm being true and authentic to myself, and they're judging that, chances are they're not leading a very happy existence in a lot of ways themselves, right? So so why am I investing so much of my life and my energy, of which, like, in my opinion, I only get to live one of those, right? Why am I working so hard to go outside of societal norms, to embrace kink, to pursue those dreams, to then get thrust into another closet? Why am I doing that to myself? And if I'm telling myself that there's only a very limited, narrow spectrum across which I can be masculine and a bottom, or that I can't even be masculine and a bottom, I'm doing myself a great disservice. And having that recognition and having that sense of just like, I deserve to have this happiness. I deserve to hold my hand high. I deserve to have my face rubbed in the mud, love that experience, and then still be respected by people afterwards, because I deserve that as a human being. And recognizing that is work, but it's good work. And I find that the more confident and able I've become as a bottom, then that permeates out into the rest of my life. It makes me feel comfortable in being who I am, in walking down the street and not being as afraid of other men, because we're taught to fear other men in particular, right? We're taught in a lot of ways that we have to measure up to something, that we have to be a certain kind of man, and that gets drilled into us from an early age. And talking to ourselves and talking to other people who are open-minded to it and saying, it's like, no, like, we get to define masculinity for ourselves, that it does not make me less masculine to bottom, is a really powerful first step.
It's kind of one of the most dominant acts. It's like saying,
Absolutely.
yeah, I am so much of a man that I get to decide what being a man is.
Yeah, exactly. And turning around and saying, is like, I'm going to define how I live my life as best I can. We're all subject to the winds of things, but I'm going to define who I am, who I want to be, and who I want to be personally is somebody who kneels one second and then stands strong the next. And I think there's a tremendous amount of power in that, right? I'm currently pursuing an ownership dynamic with somebody that I absolutely adore, and that makes me stronger. That doesn't make me weaker. Kneeling in front of her is just as empowering as the times that I've been dominant over others. And if you're struggling with that, then I think you need to take a step back and say, it's like, what's the story I'm telling myself about weakness, and about how submission is feminine, about how submission is less than, about how it's about being essentially worthless. And those are all lies that we get fed by society and then reiterated by the kink community a lot of the time. And fighting those things is hard work, but doing that work is so rewarding.
Was it Intrepida? I think it was Intrepida, and I'm fighting against using her real name because my other name, Lizard, and Lizard were needed a demo bottom at the South Carolina Grew, and the topic they were covering was cock and ball bondage. And being the facilitator, it was my job to make things happen. So I'm like, okay, fine. I have the equipment you need. I'll lay down and do that. And I have to tell you, it was quite enjoyable and very, very masculating. Not emasculating, but masculating. Yeah. To have a couple of really talented rope tops. It may not have been Intrepida, so pardon me if I'm misremembering. To have them, I'm not remembering who tied up my balls. I'm sorry, I was distracted. But anyway, having them both sitting there and, doing these things and like they wanted to take pictures and say, can I see what this is like? And they were taking pictures and sending them off to my partners, which was great because my partners were like, yeah, we love those too, that kind of thing. So it was a very enjoyable experience. And I also found I was a little nervous at Synergy because Naya has been learning how to do more rope topping. And we were there with our girlfriend, who's on the podcast known as The Blonde. And we were going to try and do where I was going to bottom to Naya's rope. And The Blonde who wasn't really into topping or bottoming at all, just wanted to kind of like enjoy the body kind of thing. She's also into a lot of foot stuff.
Okay.
And so, I was being tied up by Naya, and then having our girlfriend, the blonde, was using her heels and her body on me and in a sexual way.
Right. And
And I found that one of the keys to me, one of the ways I can enjoy rope, is when sexuality is worked in with it. And I have to say that all of those things are wonderful. Naya's competence with the rope. I still don't necessarily like the feeling of rope in my body, but I was enjoying working with her on it, and having that happen. I was really enjoying the stuff that both she and the blonde were doing to my cock, to my body, and things like that, kissing and things like that. But I got to confess, one of the fun things about it too was the knowledge that what we were doing was somewhat, I won't say taboo, but unusual for that particular. Oh my God! There's a naked Lolita on the porch.
I'm streaking through your podcast.
Oh my God! There's a naked. Sorry. Oh my God! I've never had a streaker come through my podcast before. Wow. So I hope that didn't make anybody run off the road with a naked Lolita running through. So
it's a joy.
Yes, it is. So anyway, the knowing that there were a lot of people that would walk by and look and go, wait, what? What's going on there? I don't understand. So knowing that I was mind fucking a little bit the dungeon, and to some extent it was a tiny little step towards fucking the patriarchy.
Yeah.
So I was enjoying that as well, because if there's one thing you want to be as a strong male, it's somebody who can fucking dismantle the patriarchy.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the most masculine things that we can do, is to turn around and say, it's like, my position in this world is not dependent on treating other people like shit. And I think that's and I think that's
a good way to put it.
Yeah. If my joy and my happiness depends on having a very narrowly defined world in which happiness and self-fulfillment is a scarcity, and I'm the only person people like me are the only ones who get to define that, then what the hell kind of world am I creating? And how weak and fragile is any power that I truly have, especially in DS and MS and however we're defining our relationships.
Okay. So now I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Okay.
And outside of this porch, because I don't want you to feel pressured because it's my podcast, I'd like you to tell me some male kinksters, masculine kinksters. I'll rephrase that. Some masculine kinksters who you admire.
High on that list would be Nayland Blake.
Oh, yes.
Who is a wonderful human being and does so much work around queering the culture in so many ways, and is a wonderful artist. I got a huge amount of respect for Null Moniker out of the North Carolina scene, who is another I think kindred spirit in a lot of ways, in that he time and time again uses male privilege as a megaphone to put in front of other people's mouths, and works really really hard to do that. I've got a lot of admiration for Iron Temple Dog as somebody who really works towards being privilege aware and displays that work in ways that are really really positive. Who else have I got there? I've got a lot of respect for you, Gray. And
I said outside the porch. I don't count. I don't count.
Well, you'll be outside the porch eventually.
Yeah, but I appreciate it, but I also don't want this to be a podcast of somebody telling me how great I am. So
No, absolutely, absolutely not. But I do appreciate this work that's being done. I'm scratching my head at the moment. I'm a little stuck.
That was plenty actually. And so now let's not. I'm not gonna say flip the switch. Let's say Kingsters in general who you admire and who have, and specifically, what are the traits that you admire them for that maybe you wish more people would emulate, especially maybe other masculine tops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or bottoms.
I think Lee Harrington's on that list for me too, in terms of somebody who, I have a lot of love in my heart for fellow switches who talk deeply about DS, and Lee's done some interesting work, and I think some interesting discussion around the fact that because he's very open about his transitioning journey, and the idea that he had to be very specific about how he went about using his newly acquired male privilege, and was very deliberate in how he's pursuing his way in the world and taking on that privilege, but at the same time taking on the responsibility for helping others and for pointing out the struggles of other people. So Lee's been a huge influence on me and in my life, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now it's time for the lightning questions.
Okay.
And these are much simpler than the previous ones.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite food?
Big fan of a good pizza.
What is? Give me a brand or at least a style of pizza. Thin crust, thick crust, Chicago style.
Go for some thick crust. I'm a pretty eclectic in my taste of toppings. It really depends on but if you got some good gorgonzola on there, maybe some sun-dried tomatoes, I'm a happy guy.
Awesome. Okay. Beverage of choice?
I live and breathe pretty much on Coke Zero and sugar-free Red Bull, and that's actually a big component of me managing my ADHD is to medicate through caffeination. So it's kind of it's medicinal.
All right. You are going to be thrown onto a desert island for a year. You can have one book. What would that book be?
Oh, what would the one book be? I go back a lot to Vi Johnson's book, To Love, to Serve, Obey.
Yeah.
And I go back to that as a good read, and it's a challenging book in that it's a perspective that isn't mine and from a time that was very, very different in the scene and everything else. But it's a good reminder for me that struggles are worthwhile, and that following a path of authenticity to self and insisting on being surrounded by good, solid people and doing things for those people it's an amazing reminder of that.
Wow, that's quite a recommendation. Vi Johnson.
To Love, to Serve, to Obey.
Gotcha. And I come with you and say, hey, Darren, on tomorrow night, I really need to just have a movie that I can just lose myself in. What movie would you recommend I see?
I'm a big fan of The Maltese Falcon.
Yes.
I love that movie so much.
God. You want to talk about masculinity? I love watching the old movies for the mannerisms of masculinity. I mean, a lot of them are awful in their thing, but like just the way Daniel Craig moves in the James Bond movies, or the way Clint Eastwood stands, or things like the way Idris Elba, the way Idris Elba does anything, you know.
But not the way Clint Eastwood talks to a chair.
That's Clint Eastwood. I mean, I should say the man with no name. Yeah, the way Idris Elba does anything.
I have a deep and abiding love on many levels for Idris Elba. That I want to call that man daddy.
Oh yeah, join the club. Yeah, so Naya does too, apparently. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you'll break the whole age play thing just for Idris.
Wouldn't you?
Yes. So okay, next question. What? I'm forgetting my own favorite questions here. What is something that's in your toy bag that would surprise people? I think actually there's probably a lot of things your toy would surprise people. What is something in particular that you think would make the most surprise?
Oh, geez. A Cookie Monster puppet.
a Cookie Monster puppet?
Well, sometimes I do a lot of age play, and sometimes littles that you're interacting with, maybe they need a little bit of encouragement.
Do you do a Cookie Monster voice?
Mom.
Say something dirty in a Cookie Monster voice.
I'm gonna suck your cock.
I think I'm a little bit terrified and a little turned on now. You can work with that, right?
I buy the puppets in bulk in case anything gets on them.
Oh, man. Okay, so I have a magic wand, and I can wave my magic wand, and I can make anyone, fictional, real, past, present, future, appear, and they want to play with you. Who would you like me to have manifest? And if you choose to share it, what would you like to do with them?
I have a deep and abiding love for Chris Parker from the Marketplace series, and I just want to sit at that man's feet for a while and just like watch him train other people. It's like in my like fantasy of fantasies, almost like I'm the switchiest major domo in like some beautiful little house. Mm-hmm. It's like that house has a fucked up nursery that maybe isn't in the Marketplace, but a little's nursery, not a real nursery, to specify. But I would love to sit at that man's feet and like watch him doing his thing and learn from that kind of environment.
Cool. Okay, last question. What is your favorite dirty word?
When I'm in traffic and somebody cuts me off, it's pig fucking fucker.
Pig fucking fucker.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking fucks.
Yeah. And it's a very cleansing word, right? Like by the time you're done this, like you're done being mad.
Pig fucking fucker. Yeah, you're right. That does feel good. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
All right. I don't know about you, but I can't believe the sound was actually that clear. But we are we going to see him again at Crossroads event? Oh, it's too bad. So yeah, we're going to be going to Crossroads event, which is at turtlehillevents.org. Really a good idea to go to that. I'd also like to take a moment and pimp another event.
This is Dan,
Dawn,
And Karen.
and we are the co-producers of the annual polyamory event, Beyond the Love.
Beyond the Love is a low-cost 3-day event held on November 11th, 12th, and 13th, 2016, in a private space in a beautiful hotel in Columbus, Ohio.
You will find a variety of classes and workshops led by people living in polyamorous relationships from around the country.
As well as fun and interactive extras like poly mixers, game night, and an 80s dance and more.
There will be a wealth of opportunity to learn tools, techniques, and communication skills to enhance our poly relationships.
We will provide a safe environment for meeting with other like-minded people in a supportive and inclusive community.
We welcome anyone living a poly lifestyle or considering doing so.
We're passionate about recognizing poly as a relationship choice and sharing common experiences on our many different paths.
Find out more at beyondthelove.org.
We
Hope to see you there.
Now, you may be wondering if you'll see me there, and I'll be honest with you, probably not. Not because I don't support them or I don't think it's a great event. I am, in fact, polyamorous, as my darling Naya and the blonde will tell you. But that is the week after Ropecraft New Orleans. And we will be in full, oh my god, we did it mode. But I don't think you should not be able to go there. And in order to make it easier for you to go to both events, guess what? That's right. Even though we are about to do, in about a week and a half, maybe less than that, a price bump where the cost of going to Ropecraft will go up to $199, which is still a good deal. 3 nights of parties, classes, 2 full dungeons, rope and space with Murphy Blue, access to the gala dinner with lots of performances. That's a good deal, even at $199.99, which is what it's going to go up to on September 17th. Right now, it's $179.99, so you could still get your tickets, now and get a little money. But guess what? Because you, my dear friend, yes, I'm talking to you, are listening to this Ropecast. All you have to do is go in to ropecraftnola.bpt.me and enter in the code ROPECAST. If you do that, you will get access to a special Ropecast price of $149.99 for the entire event.
Woo!
So, please do not share this with anyone that you don't think is a Ropecast listener. Maybe they could be a potential Ropecast listener, but this is just for you. What I'm saying is don't post it to the internet. This is just for you, and I hope that it means that you'll have an extra $50 or so to go to Beyond the Love too. Or you could go take it and get some rope from karmarope.com, one of my sponsors, or check out what the color of the month is from Twisted Monk. Hey, actually, that's enough money to buy not only a length of rope, but also to get yourself one of the new gear slingers from Twisted Monk, which are totally fucking awesome. So, twistedmonk.com, one of my sponsors. Yes, Naya, you wanted to tell me something? Nope, she's not.
No.
She's just being a
You could
good
buy me a
server.
gear slinger.
You could buy Naya a gear slinger if you'd like. Send that to Graydancer at gmail.com if you can figure out how to send something solid through email. Anyway, so that hits the hour mark, so I'm going to sign off. This is Graydancer again from my undisclosed location where we are making plans for our next assault on Ramblewood. Signing off. That's some good rope.